Morning, everybody. Sorry for taking us away from the sunshine today, but we've got a 1 hour special here at UX Design webinar. It's the first one that we've hosted from ATU Donegal from the design department, and it is hosted by the Master's Postgraduate Diploma in UX Design and Applied Innovation. So first up, we're going to have Tash Wilcocks. Tash joined us this morning from Snook. She's going to talk about ideation. Tash is the head of learning design at Snook, and they've offices in London and Glasgow. And Tash has been a friend of the course for the last few years. And we always bring her in every year. She's just really brilliant around the area, especially around the area of ideation. So we'll have a good half-hour talk from Tash. And then myself and Mark Porter did some interesting work this year, more or less bringing design thinking into VR with our emerging technology class and the students involved in that. So we have a couple of good findings that we want to share with you as well, especially if you're working with teams and you're looking at collaborating online and even dipping your toe into VR. So that's kind of the running order. Just before we kick off and move over to Tash, I just want to let you know that the session will be recorded, and it will be available to view on YouTube and LinkedIn following that. And thanks to Donald Hannigan, who's at the back end of this here and helping us through this today. Just on the actual course itself, I'll just give you a 2-minute run through. It's a master's in a year. You know, it's one. There's only a few of these in the country. So it's, if you start in September, you finish in September, and you come away with a master's. And it's really broken down into 2 12-week semesters and then an additional 12-week work-based learning project if you decide to go on and do the master's. So you could leave with a postgraduate diploma after 2 12-week semesters. It's 1 day a week, so it's perfect if you're a remote worker. We see a lot of the students coming on here that are remote workers. A lot of people are already in the workplace. Some students are new graduates, but it is 100% online. So there's no actual on-campus activity. There's no necessity to be on campus, and that's why we've kind of brought in this VR element to it this year as well. So we use collaboration softwares like Microsoft Teams, Miro. I know some of you will be familiar with that. And we started to play about with the likes of spatial VR software this year as well. But it's very much a commuter style model, you know, so we try to design around the Digitech worker. So somebody who's has limited time, but you have to obviously do the hours that are involved in each module. So we look at podcasts, audible books, and this type of thing that you can consume on the go. So it's very much designed in that way. It was designed around a need for enterprise, that there was a requirement for this design-driven innovation in-house. You're seeing it more and more within the large digitech companies in particular, but it's to develop that strong design capability in-house, develop appropriate skill sets so that your industry can thrive. Now, if you're wondering if this course is for you or not, most people come onto the course whether they're just graduated, whether they're looking for a career change, or if it's promotion within where they're working currently. But we've loads of different backgrounds of students. You know, it's not traditionally graphics and UI design. There is that type of student that comes forward, but there's also people from research backgrounds, consumer-based, customer-focused, digital media backgrounds, people coming out with business and leadership degrees, software development background, product owners come into this course as well. Because it's UX design and applied innovation, there is a mix you'll see within the modules. And just to give you a quick overview of the modules, in the first semester, you cover consumer behavior and digital markets. You do user experience design, which is really a design thinking module to embed the process, but you'll also do innovation and new product development. So you look at all the other types of innovation that are out there, from Scrum to Agile to all the different types of innovation that are happening in the different digitech sectors. Research methods then takes you into semester 2, where you start to look at emerging technologies. This is where the whole UX and VR came through this year. We'll also look at the likes of AI and blockchain and all within that. And then you have professional development, where you can look at your own career path, use your user interface design as well. We use Figma within that there. But you have this capstone module, which is the work-based learning project, where you can take all your learning back into the workplace, and that's where your master's module kind of comes to the fore. When we started this course, it looked like this. We had it on campus. Everyone that came on campus was involved in this collaborative in-class work experience. That has evolved because of the pandemic, changed everything. That's evolved to look a little bit like this more recently. This is a shot from spatial from the group. Now, this wouldn't have happened if it was on campus, because we've got students there from Brazil, Kuala Lumpur, UK, Mayo, Buncrana, all over, and everyone's working away from home in that capacity. So it's a master's postgraduate diploma in UX design and applied innovation. There is funding and scholarships available, more so this year than previous years. So there's up to $2,500 available, almost actually over 50% of the fee. For more information on it, contact our head of department, Nuala Crombie, or Donald Hannigan, on here as well, or myself. Okay, so there's problems seeing slides. I think if there's any problems, I can send on these slides to everybody afterwards. So the applications are open now. It is going to be capped, so there will be a certain amount of students that can come on, but we're looking for people to come on to the 22-23 intake. So just on that there, I'm going to pass over to Tash, and she's going to talk you through now her deck on ideation. So if I can pass over to you, Tash. Any issues with the slides there, I'll share them on to everybody afterwards. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I am going to turn my camera on. The only slide I could actually see was me doing that all the way through, so you probably be expecting me just to come on like this. I will be sharing my slides, so really good morning to you. I didn't get the memo about the fancy background, so I apologise. Right, so let's open my slides. I am going to say... it'll take 2 seconds just to upload, and then you should see the slides. Just thinking about it. Okay, can everybody see my slides before I start? Just pop in the chat, say yes, no. Yes, thank you, Joyce. Awesome, so I'm getting some interaction, lovely. Hello, thank you very much for saying yes. Got a few coming through now. My name's Tash Wilcocks. I'm really flattered to be here. I love talking on this course. I come in once a year and talk about ideation. It does feel a bit odd to sort of like start in the middle where sort of ideation is, but that's fine. Let's talk about this. So my name's Tash Wilcocks. I co-run sorry, it's coming through on my screen. So I co-run Design Education, which is an international community for design educators. So feel free if you want to join to give me a shout. I also run something called Mundane a Day, which is under @Tash Wilcocks on Instagram, which started as a personal project. I started doing drawing a day just because I wanted to get better at lettering. And that was 10 years ago. And I've ended up doing a TEDx talk on it, which was fantastic. Professionally, I used to run a creative international business school called Hyper Island. I'm now I can't remember what I'm called on that. I'm a honorary fellow there, but more recently, in the last couple of years, I've moved to a service design agency called Snook. And Snook is a multidisciplinary design studio, and we create products and services and tools that help everyone from people to governments thrive. So there, I do training, we do workshops, we go into institutions like the NHS, for example, and at the moment I'm upskilling 500 people in user-centered design, and other times we have external training like making sense of service design. But I'm going to leave that there because what I'm actually here to talk about is ideation. So ideation is just a fancy word of saying coming up with ideas. However, where do good ideas come from? So the seeds come from individuals, but the reality in design field is not the myth of the lone thinker. You know, you can see him here having a really good think. And other than if he was sat on the toilet, where I actually do get some really great ideas, it's not usually one person sat on their own. It's the power of team. So Edison invited the light bulb, the sort of like the symbol for great ideas. He gets all the credit. but he built on other people's ideas and had a whole team called the Muckers behind him that you very rarely hear about. So Stephen Johnson in Where Do Good Ideas Come From talks about these 7 principles. So Stephen Johnson, I've linked in his book there. He's also got a few sort of talks that I'd suggest having a look at. And also I've linked in the Muckers. So if you want to get this slide deck afterwards, I'm going to send them over and all of the links are in there. But what are these 7 principles? He talks about what new possibilities are there today that didn't exist a year ago, and that's the principle of adjacent possibilities. What hunches have you had for some time and about what you do? You know, that slow hunch. So that's the principle of the slow hunch. The more you share them or build on them, the better they are. Number 3, what do fresh eyes think we should do? So the principle of liquid networks. Number 4, what's worked that surprised us? You know, that wonderful moment where serendipity comes in. So the principle of serendipity, build on what surprises and chance happenings happens. Number 5, what's the biggest learning from our era? Share it, learn from it, share your learnings and mistakes, because you can gift other people to not make that same mistake. But actually, it's always building, it's iterative. And that's the principle of error. Number 6, what other purpose can our product or service be used for? The principle of, and I can never say this, acceptation. So that comes from like bird feathers evolved for warmth, and then through acceptation they became wings. There's some really interesting sort of places here. And 7, and don't worry, I'm not just going to go through lots of numbered lists. What big success can we build on? That platform principle. And all of these can fold into the ideation process, from slow hunches that bounce with other people's, can trigger brilliant ideas, to somebody sort of like, you know, if somebody knows about tech and you've had this slow hunch and it's just been waiting for that trigger of them going, wait a minute, you could do it in this way. The reframing of fear of failing to iterative learning, and the power of those fresh eyes as you throw ideas into the ring. So what is ideation? In simple terms, ideation is the mode of design process in which you concentrate on an idea generation. Mentally, it represents the process of going wide. So we're in that part of the double diamond where we shoot out and we go wide, loads and loads of ideas. Ideation provides both the fuel and also the source material for building prototypes and getting innovative solutions in the hands of your users. So that's from the D School, who are part of IDEO. And I mentioned the double diamond here. It could be any process. There's a lot of frameworks out there. It could be the Squiggle design thinking process, double diamond revamped, McKinsey Braid, government agile service, IBM Lynch. They're all frameworks, but always remember they're not a truth. Don't get obsessed with doing it in one day. They're guides. Don't get married to them. Learn them, understand them, and then find your way in the team of doing it in the best way. So I'm going to move into checking in. You can have a little think about this if you do want to think. Put what's brought you joy today in the chat. Feel free. But this is just sort of an example. So at the beginning of an ideation session, or to be honest, most sessions, so workshops, actually checking into the day sometimes, or meetings, I like to do a check-in. And check-in and check-out processes are super easy. They can be quick. You pose a check-in question at the start of the meeting, session, or workshop to allow people to step into the space, allow them to sort of leave what they need to leave behind them and check in. They express how they're feeling, to be present and connect with the people in the room. So it could be the team, it could be participants. And it allows everyone to be seen and heard. And this is super important if you're going to be sharing ideas. It gets everyone to speak. And that small moment stops that barrier for someone who might find it hard to voice their opinions. It's collaborative. Checking in emphasizes presence, focus, and group commitment. Checking out emphasizes reflection and closure. So a little bit more on here, and you can see some questions that you could use. They're not always just what brings you joy. There's lots and lots of different ways. The link on the page before is actually from Hyper Island, and they give you loads of questions. So another great reason for a check-in is formally, informally, funny, or slightly more focused. It helps us acknowledge that we're not robots, but instead We're complex, fleshy, sort of like sacks of blood and bones. We're humans. We've got emotions. Moments of vulnerability help build a foundation of trust, especially when models by leaders in the room. And that could be the most senior person, it could even be the facilitator or another person to seen to have some form of power in that space. So if you're the facilitator, you role model and then try to bounce it to the person with the perceived power next. And lastly, it takes the pressure off. Like, I'll admit, I think the world revolves around me slightly. So if there's somebody in the room, it could be a participant, it could be a teammate that seems a little bit disengaged or looks like they're bored or looks like they're just a bit frustrated. I will spend a lot of time focusing on them. What have I done that might have upset them? Why are they feeling like that? And actually, if you just check in, and I'm going to grab one off here, if they check in as animal and they just go, feeling like a bit of a grumpy bear, I've had quite a bad night's sleep, and I had sort of like a client really pestering me yesterday. By saying that, it takes that weight off your shoulders. You know why they might look a little bit tired or disengaged. It means that you understand all of the emotions and feelings in the room and you can work with that. So it's really, really important to have that lovely bit of ideation, not ideation, check in. Okay. So it gives context for some folks' behaviors and for some saying out loud actually unload some of the feelings. Plus, it's a very light form of warm up. Ideation needs a stretchy mindset. Think of your brains like a stick of chewing gum. Some people come in a little bit more rigid and might need a little bit more chewing to get started, to get malleable before blowing up those ideas. Warm ups create space to show our humanity. Instead of diving straight into the work, taking a few minutes to go round the room and check in can help start building psychological safety. And with warm ups, always do them on something else. Don't do it on the work. Do it on something like how to squeeze a lemon. Because as soon as you focus on the work, people sort of like go into that work mode. What you need to do, loosen everybody up. Be like a sort of trainer, a sort of gym instructor. Get everyone loosened up. Okay. So I'm going to move into the fact that ideation does not exist in a bubble. And from maybe in your studies or your workplaces and practice, you might have realized that it's not always you that will be doing the ideation. It could be you. It could be you and your team. It could be you facilitating workshops with participants. It could be co-design or co-creation. And that's why it's important to talk about psychological safety. I'm not going to go into depth here, but do look further if you've not done so already. So, what is this buzzword, psychological safety? In psychological safe teams, team members feel accepted and respected. You know you're not going to get kicked out for coming up with a weird idea. And ideation, you really need some weird ideas to pop out. So, this is from Amy Edmondson. Psychological safety is the belief that one person will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And psychological safety is not the same as comfort. You can see here in this diagram that I've redrawn by Shane Snow. At the bottom, you've got danger and comfort, and that's how people get hurt. You don't want the room, the space, the people in your team to be in that space. To the right, you have safety and comfort, and that's how people get nowhere. It's the status quo, it's static. People just become apathetic. If we go to the top left, you've got danger and discomfort. You definitely don't want that in the room. You don't want that in your team. That's what people avoid. They're going to sort of slowly moonwalk out of that workshop. If they're online, they're going to go, oh, I've just got to go to a meeting. Where you do want to be is discomfort, which sounds odd when you say it out loud, and safety. But discomfort is really important. It's that nice little friction zone where the learning happens, and that learning and growing together, how people make progress is really, really important. It's that discomfort. You know, when you sort of try something new, you're a little bit like, whew, this is new, but actually you're a little bit excited. It's that nervous excitement. It's on the edge of your stretch zone. It's on the edge of the participants or team's stretch zone. It's really important to be in that space. So to ideate, we need psychological safe teams or groups, but we also need a diverse group of folks. that all feel included in the process. So I used to talk a lot about diversity, and if I could have a time machine to go back in time, I would add in that inclusivity because I'd missed the point. We need to embrace the power of diverse and inclusive thinking. So the aim is to create conditions of trust that allow diverse team members to bring their unique perspectives and experiences to the table. And you can expand the amount of knowledge your team can access and create an unbeatable vantage. And that's from Francis Fray and Anne Morris in Begin with Trust. Again, you can see it there. And the reason being, if you look at the diagram, again, I've just redrawn this from the book. So you have homogenous teams. Homogenous teams, sort of all of the same people, and it's a common store of knowledge, but it is fully shared. So you can see that circle, and it's fully shared. The orange is the fully shared knowledge. So think, we've got Einstein. Einstein's joined our team. Fantastic. However, you then employ 5 more Einsteins. So think of it like a stack of coins. You've got 5 Einsteins all stacked on top of each other, and you think, oh, amazing. This is an unbeatable team. But the actuality is, if you turn it facing forward, you've really just got one Einstein. You've got a common store of knowledge that's fully shared, but it's one piece of knowledge. What you want is to look at diverse teams. So a diverse store of knowledge, but that's only partly shared. Where we need to be is an inclusive teams, a diverse store of knowledge that's fully shared. And you can see that in that final Venn, really opening it up. What I need to do is shrink that top one down because it's too big, but imagine that's just the small bit in the middle. So you need a psychological safe space, a diverse and inclusive group of people. Check. Anything else? Yes. So what you need is the right question, because a great solution to the wrong problem will fail. Take time on things like how might we's, user needs, problem statements, points of view, plus the research that got you there. Because you might go, okay, we've got this question, we'll go, and you're over here and we've had brilliant ideas, you've created an amazing service, but actually it's solving the wrong problem. Nobody wants it. Nobody's using it because you've solved the wrong problem. So it might be fantastic, but it has no use. It has no users out there that need it. Don't trust me on this. I've got Albert Einstein. He's on our team, remember? So Albert Einstein says, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. For once I know the proper question, I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. So always remember that research, that prep work, that discovery, this first part of the diamond or whichever model you're using, super important. Okay, you're going, get to the point. We want to talk about ideation. So, ideation. I'm not going to go through everything in ideation. I started writing this and it became about a 12-hour talk. I have got a Medium post that I've added later. So if you do want to go a little bit deeper. So the principles of ideation. Yes, and is a beautiful thing. When you're in ideation, you need to not be the no person in the room. Don't be the no person. Even worse, don't be the yes, but person. A yes, but is a purely camouflaged no. If you need to, Val, who I work with, actually has a but bucket. So if you've got the buts when you're in ideation, you write them down and you put it in the bucket or you post it in a parking lot. Just write them down because for me, especially, it allows me to just put them somewhere safe just because they'll be in the back of my mind niggling away. Okay. So be a yes and person. Build on everybody's ideas. Think about if somebody had come to you and said, let's build an open source encyclopedia and make it free for the whole world. And somebody went, yeah, but we're not going to be able to do X, Y, Z. We'd never have Wikipedia. If JFK, who, yes, had a little bit more influence, had just come in the room and gone, let's take a man to the moon and bring him back, and everybody gone, yeah, but that would have closed it down. So it's about that free thinking. Have those head in the clouds until you need to have your feet on the floor and bring it back into reality. Think of it like a pile of sand, building this beautiful pile of ideas in the sand that you can shape back into a brilliant castle. It's really hard to build from nothing if somebody just keeps coming in and kicking over your sandcastle. Quantity over quality. So again, some people get quite het up about this sentence, but I would say it's quantity for quality. It's about getting all those ideas out there. I'm going to swear, so sorry. Your first idea is usually shit, and that's okay. Get it out there. But it's about sort of like building with other people, going past that first idea that you had and really, really pushing it. What's your 8th idea? What's your 10th idea? Get loads and loads of ideas out in different ways. And then it's about shaping back down to get that really that nugget of gold. It's about, and you'll probably notice I'm very about team is everything. Use your collective intelligence and ensure everyone in the room has space to contribute. It's about giving and taking the space. So if you're one of the quieter voices, if there's that space left, make sure you sort of take it. It's about using different ways of ideating to actually create those spaces. So if you're creating this, if you're facilitating, make sure there's different motions. Some can be a little bit louder, some quieter, some silent, some can be online, some can be in the room. Because the more people's voices are heard and diverse perspectives are added, the better. So again, having diverse voices allows different perspectives to feed in, and this helps with the ideation. But in any part of the process, when I say diversity, I mean like race, sexual orientation, age, physical or mental ability. I also mean external diversity. So personal interests, education, location, religion, life experiences, it all feeds in. Okay. All feeds in. There's also organizational diversity because sometimes it'll just be the designers sat in the room. So you might want to think about job functions, seniority, pay type from different areas. This is important to think about in the room. Okay. So if you do have the boss in the room or a loud person, sometimes there's that tendency to push an idea, and others might unconsciously be biased towards it. So a leader might unintentionally lean towards a direction and bias the team. So it's about creating creative ways for all voices to come through. Move on. It's about focusing on pain points and opportunities. So, what are those user needs? What are those pain points and opportunity areas that have bubbled through in the research? What does that, how might we or that user need sort of like need you to focus on? It's about postponing judgment. So, there's a fantastic research by Charles Lim, which I'll bring a quote in after this. He's a surgeon, and where he put rappers and jazz musicians in brain scanners. And it's about how our brains behave while we're on improv. So as soon as I say the word improv, people go, oh, but actually improv is a really, really good tool. And again, you need that psychological safety to sort of relax everybody into it. And it's about how our frontal cortex is like, or he likes to say it, the judgy bit quietens. So I've linked it in here. But he actually says to be creative, you should have this weird dissociation with your frontal lobe. One area turns on and a big area shuts off so that you're not inhibited. You're willing to make mistakes so that you're not constantly shutting it down, all of these new generative impulses. So when I say postpone judgment, most people go, oh, okay, I'm not going to judge everyone else in the room. But actually, a lot of the time, the person you're judging the most is you. So it's allowing yourself to just come out with those ideas, free think. How can you keep the room as a facilitator or a team leader in a free flow state so that people don't have time to overthink and not say it out loud? But equally, it is about not judging the people in the room. Don't judge other people. Again, I don't go into a room to go, that idea's rubbish. Derek from accounts, he's got no creative ideas. I don't think most people come in with that attitude. But oddly, we think other people are thinking about that with us. Okay. So I am going to give you a couple of tools. And they're just a couple of tools that I think are really, really important. So like I said earlier, sometimes you've got to sort of try different tools and different ideation techniques to get the best out of the room. So, some people are introverted on the scale. I actually don't believe anyone's fully introverted or fully extroverted. I think sometimes we slide up and down there, depending on who's in the room. But for some of the quieter voices, it might be that you're newer to the team. It might be you're sort of less mature in the space. It could be that you're just a little bit quieter. But all of those reasons doesn't mean that you don't have great ideas. So how can we open up the space to have these great ideas? A silent round robin is fantastic. You can do it in person or online. So in person, you simply get a sheet of paper. You could write your user need on it. And basically, you have your first idea, you write it down, you pass it to the person on the left. Everybody passes around their piece of paper and you build on that idea and you go round until you've completed the whole circuit. Super simple. It's lovely. You do it silently. You can do it quite fast to keep the pace up, or you can do it a little bit slower. The beauty of doing this online, there is a fantastic sort of space, because what you can actually do is you can turn off the cursors so you don't know who's writing. So you don't know whose idea is being passed round. It's really nice and silent. Everybody can concentrate in the nice space, that silent bubble. And nobody goes, oh, wait a minute, that's the manager's idea. I might just sort of like go, yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll build on that one. Nobody anchors to an idea because nobody knows whose idea is being passed round. So it really frees that sort of bias that might come into the room. So a silent round robin is a fantastic tool, and it can be used in lots and lots of different ways. And I've seen it hacked in many, many different ways. Very, very different. So I'm flipping this round now. A very different way is negative brainstorming. So if you haven't done negative brainstorming, do give it a try. So take the how might we and think of the worst possible ideas. So the worst idea in the world. You brainstorm to generate as many bad ideas as possible to the problem. The team then sees how they can transform it into a good solution. So you flip it. So negative brainstorming is a great tool to delay judgment, and one, I'm going to be honest, that seems to really get some people's creative juices flowing. Um, it takes the normal pattern of brainstorming in basic situation where a group of people meet to generate new ideas and basically flips it into negative. So what's quite nice about this is if it's already stated as a bad idea, negative one, people seem to worry less. It's okay because it's meant to be bad. And once people have poured out all of their ideas, you hone them and flip them. The negative can be creatively flipped into that positive. It's also really interesting to see there are some quite evil people out there. So, in the teams, some people really thrive in this area. So, an example of this could be a bank. So, the bank, we're going to ideate around that. And somebody comes up with, I know, every time a customer makes a purchase, we round it up and we keep the money. Says the bank. Okay. So you'd probably lose a lot of customers. But what if you flipped it like Wells Fargo did? And I've seen this in loads and loads of banks since this, but Wells Fargo Way to Save account was the first one that did it. So, for example, if you purchase a coffee, that's £2.50, the bank will charge you $3. Negative. Why are they taking my money? However, they transfer the difference of the 50p into your savings accounts. And it's a win-win for both parties. And those small increments really, really add up. So you can see there's two very, very different ways, but both work in sort of different for different people. And there's lots and lots of different design tools out there. These are just two tasters. But I want to go back to, so if you can't look in a new direction by looking harder in the same direction. So that's by Edward de Bono. He came up with the term lateral thinking. So it's that go wide, think lateral. Team really is everything. So I am bringing it into this team. But when I say team, it could be the team in the room, the participants in the room. Your one idea could trigger something in someone else. Diverse teams with different views build, twist, play, and create new ideas together that one person could not. We are not all idea fire starters. Some of us fan the flames that others stoke. But what's important in ideation is not to be the person that brings the bucket of water. Okay. And finally, I'm just going to wrap up with these wonderful words from Maya Angelou. You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. because I ran a session recently where we did a crazy 8 sessions, which is 8 ideas in 8 minutes. And a woman stayed behind and she stated, I'm not creative. And I thought she was just going to leave it there. But then actually said, I don't do arty stuff or ideas. And that really put me out of my comfort zone. And again, I was like, where'd she go with the feedback? But actually, she said, do you know what? I did that crazy 8s and I came out with a great idea. And I was so happy because she said herself it was a great idea. I was buzzing because everyone is creative. We just get it kicked out of us or put ourselves in a non-creative box. But as reality says, what Maya Angelou says is you can't use up creativity. We're all born with it. The more you use it, the more you have. So it's about getting it into the hands of the team, the people in the room, and getting them to play and loosen up. Okay. So I am going to leave it there. I'm on 11:39, and I am going to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion coming in here. So this is a thank you. If you do have any questions, I'm on Twitter at Tash Wilcocks, so the same as my spelling. Feel free to say hello, but also if you're interested in short courses built on Snook's experience and practice, we do user-centered design, service design, planet-centered design, and we do have a journey mapping and blueprinting coming up, and I'm going to pop them in the chat. So if anybody wants to say hello, ask any questions, please feel free to. And also there's a link to the so what the hell's ideation post that has lots and lots more in ideation tools in there for you. And on that note, I'm going to stop presenting and say thank you.
Thanks very much, Tash. That was fantastic. Really good. A couple of questions coming through there. I'll come back to you in a second on those. So Tash is one of our guest speakers on the UX design module on the masters. So if you want to hear more from Tash, you need to join the course in September. I'll plug here as well, Tash, as well. But yeah, we'll be starting off in September with our new cohort. So applications are open at the moment. Just a couple of questions coming in there, Tash. One there, many private sector companies are moving towards UX capability in-house, even more, and we're starting to see public sector even go in that direction as well. Do you find yourself still having to convince companies that ideation is a great idea, or is it becoming more accepted? You know, how's that going?
So basically, I probably I've come from more private and startup world, and with Snook, I mainly work in government and with the NHS and healthcare sector. So it's county councils, NHS, they are seeing user-centered design, that like they can see the value of it, and it's about cracking that myth of the cool kids in the corner with their Macs going, look at me, I'm doing design, because they're not going, look at me, I'm doing design. They're going, we need to work with you to make this service work. And actually, just doing sort of some short courses is cracking open that door a little bit. And yeah, they are seeing the value. I actually do. We've done some stuff with the NHS on design advocacy, and sort of like not for designers. So it's for designers, but more for the people who work with them and around them, for them to understand how they can help promote it, how they can work together. Because I think sometimes the biggest blocker can be the designer in the room talking in jargon, sort of almost building a bit of a wall. And it's about breaking that down. So because there's the Agile Onion by Stephen Powers, which is very much like the whole organization, for UCD to work, for service design to work, the whole organization needs to be user-centered. And that's a mindset. You don't need to do it, but you need to understand it. That was a really long answer. I hope that made sense.
Completely clear. The second question is what tools are you using at Snook to collaborate with remote workers?
So we used to use Miro, but we're not allowed to use that in government anymore. So we're using Mural. But I'm going to say, do you know what? I used to hate spreadsheets. Good old spreadsheet does the job. We've actually been doing service design blueprints in them. They're really accessible because a lot of people can't actually use Miro/Mural because of impairments. So actually a spreadsheet is amazing. We use Slack. Slack is, invaluable. I'm just going to end up naming loads of sort of things, but mainly Mural, spreadsheets, the Google Drive and Slack.
Thanks very much for your time, Tash.
Thank you.
We're going to move on here. I know everyone's. We did say we tried to keep to an hour, and thanks for keeping the time, Tash. The pressure's on myself and Mark now to do the same. I'll introduce Dr. Mark Porter here as well. He's going to help me talk through this recent project that we did within the UX Masters as well. So just let me share my screen, and we'll go through that. Hopefully now you can see a blue screen on there with enhancing the teaching and learning experience. Just give me a thumbs up if you're seeing that on screen. Yeah, great, good stuff. So just first of all, I suppose I didn't introduce myself earlier on, but I'm Padraic Lynch, and I'm a lecturer in design and creative media within the ATU Donegal, and we're here on behalf of the Masters and Postgraduate Diploma in UX Design and Applied Innovation. So during this course this year, we implemented a few changes. We decided to look at new ways to bring possibly virtual reality classrooms into the course, and we had an investment from the school into headsets for students. And I just want to tell you a little bit about that journey. And Mark, who is the head of flexible and online learning at ATU Donegal, was an invaluable part of this project as well in order to help us through that. So it's framed around enhancing the teaching and learning experience for 100% online courses through immersive VR workshops. Bit of a mouthful, but it's really about design thinking in VR. That's where we ended up with it. Very applicable to if you're working in teams within design thinking, and if you're looking to make that a more enhanced experience. So the few things we're going to cover is the current state of teaching and learning, overview of VR in education, implementation and all the troubleshooting that we came across, then what happened when we got into VR, and what we're planning to do at the next stage. And before I pass over to Mark here, I just want to give you a quick overview of kind of passive versus active learning. These two pictures on the right hand side, hopefully you're seeing those on your screen. On the top right here, that's your typical, what we were seeing during the pandemic, the typical undergraduate class, especially around first year, second years, that perhaps weren't they hadn't maybe met their peers at this stage. A lot of cameras switched off, just the lecturer having the camera on. You weren't sure who was engaged, you weren't sure who was physically in the room, and there was too many unknowns. Whereas in the bottom right hand side, this was more a typical postgraduate class, where you would have most of the students would be more than willing to switch on cameras, and that's not something we enforced. We didn't say you had to have your camera on and so on. That just didn't feel right. But then you'd have some people that weren't as well. So it was a kind of a mix of few too many unknowns, I suppose, was the main thing. But I suppose that the pandemic really changed everything, and there was new softwares, new hardwares that we were trying to get used to. There was staff and student anxiety around us here as well, because everything was happening so fast, and it actually suited a lot of people, but not everyone. Not everyone was willing to work in this way. So it was very difficult to see who was engaged, but it did seem to suit the postgraduate student more, and I think that's because they were used to this within the work environment, and it was more natural for them. So we asked ourselves kind of a question, which I'll get to in a second, but is empathy lost on the desktop? We were trying to find new words or new ways of trying to engage the students more, and that's where this kind of VR element came into play. So this was the key question that we kind of phrased. How do we recreate the engagement and nuances that happen in a typical classroom? Now, before I go into that there, I'm going to pass over to Mark here in a second, just to frame that question a little bit better before we start to answer and tell you where we got. I'll pass over to yourself, Mark.
Thank you, Padraic. I just wanted to say that was an excellent presentation that Tash did, and a lot of things she talked about. This was definitely an iterative process. Because VR is such a new technology, in many disciplines, education especially being one of those, it's basically finding best practice. So to give you an idea, VR is virtual reality. It's starting to sort of eke its way in the education, and it's been used in many different ways. So there's probably 5 different approaches to using it in VR. So there's communication, where you can have it as a platform where you can go in and collaborate. You have it as a workflow platform where you can go in and you can mix your desktop with virtual reality. I'll show you this video that I have here in a second, which is called Infinite Office, which explains that a bit better. It can be used for gamification, where you can bring students in and let them do tasks. It can be used for virtual tasks. And what I mean by that is, so in education, there's different types of techniques. One of them is practice-based learning. So if we think about like engineering or nursing, where they have competencies training, where they go in and learn practical skills. So virtual reality can be used for that. And one of the biggest uses is simulation, where you can drop people into an environment. So for example, like the dinosaurs, you could drop people into the prehistoric era, where they can see what dinosaurs are like, what their environment was like, to get a sense of that. So I'll just play this video here now. Oh, sorry. So just to give you a bit of an overview what was happening there in that video. So that was a workflow example, and it's a nice example that sort of shows you how the likes of Meta, Facebook's new brand, is looking at replacing your desktop PC. So what you had there is you had a lady who was wearing the Meta Quest, and she was able to sort of mix the real world and the virtual world through productivity, where she could be using her physical keyboard but using virtual screens. And again, these are sort of things that we're looking at now to see how we can bring this sort of hybrid digital workflow into education.
Thanks, Mark. I suppose, yeah, we're using VR in different ways. We're trying to encourage active engagement, enhance online learning, but also explore kind of new modes of delivery. Because that course was originally on campus, because the pandemic changed everything, we were seeing much more interest from international students. So we decided to move to the online version of it. So that's where we were kind of missing out then, I suppose, on campus. So we trying to find a way to combat that. And I think for a new way of blended learning is really around having the 2D on-screen version, like on MS Teams or on Blackboard, but also having that backed up with the VR classroom. We definitely noticed there was friendships starting to form. There was people actually, working well within groups. I suppose if you're in the classroom, you can see if a student needs help. You can see if somebody's leaving early to get the bus. You don't always get that when you're on the MS Teams, or if you're on Zoom or one of the other ones. So there is direct communication that happens in class that just doesn't happen within the VLE platforms. But it does happen within VR. You do see that when somebody's not engaged, it's obvious. There's the nuances are more apparent. You can see people nodding, you can see people talking, But I'll go into that a little bit more in a second. The tools that we were using, Mark alluded to them there. The MetaQuest 2 was the investment that the school made, and also Manage XR, which was a kind of a central management system. And then we trialed and errored on quite a few different software products, you know, to see which one could house us in the metaverse that we could kind of play about with as a team. And we ended up with Spatial. Spatial.io was the one that we kind of used mostly. So Mark, do you want to pick up on Spatial a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. So one of the really interesting things about all these applications that are being created for VR, they're constantly in development. When we started this process, as you can see sort of in the video clip there, it was sort of like floating torsos that we had. But at the end of the 12-week process, we then had legs attached to us. So there was all these sort of new omnipresent things being added where you could see more physicality of the person in virtual reality. And as Padraic talked about, this is the really nice thing about VR. A lot of those nuances, like when you're having a conversation and somebody's nodding their head, showing you that they're engaged, you don't really get that in Teams. Where in VR, you actually get that because there's a virtual presence there. So you can see hand movement, you can see head movement, you can see body movement. And if Padraic wants to just click the video there, this is a really nice video to give you an overview of what a lot of these programs can offer with regards to collaboration, how you can use design tools to ideate and stuff like that.
Even just before I play this here as well, like there is, even this is a typical kind of scenario here where I'm looking at the screen, I can see the slides, I can see Mark here as well, but I can't see everybody else. Not that you have to see everybody else, but if we were in VR and we were presenting in VR, it'd be much more obvious what's going on in the room and a lot more engagement. Let me just play through this. We actually got to that point within the presentations this year as well, where the students presented a project and highlighted all the design thinking process that they went through. And it was really engaging, and it was a great opportunity for them to really share their work that they'd gone through. There was troubleshooting, right? This is not an easy flow. There's no doubt about that. The leap from the initial kind of idea of bringing a VR classroom into a module and getting to the whole class into Spatial to present at the end did not come easy. Now there was a lot of work involved, and that was I suppose myself as the teaching aspect of it. It was only possible because Mark was in the room as well to handle the troubleshooting of people getting in there, people getting used to the tools and so on. So that initial support from the school, I suppose, getting the headsets for the students, and then we had the logistics around that. Do you post them out to them? Do you if you're sending them to Malaysia and Brazil and so on, there's different processes you have to go through for that. So yeah, let me pass over to you, Mark, because you had to handle a lot of this stuff.
No, definitely. And like as sort of Tash alluded to earlier, you need to be very flexible and have different approaches to tackle it like this because it's so new. There's no just one solution for everything. When we started this, we found there was lots of different learning curves. You had the learning curve from our side with regards to the delivery and the implementation of it. You had the learning curve from the user side, and that varied in relation to digital skill set, how exposed and how confident people were in using digital tools. And then when they got into the actual virtual interface, you had a completely different interface from a desktop. You were getting into spatial UX, UI elements then, where you had to learn different paradigms like you would have had years ago when tablets were introduced, for example, like pinch and zoom and rotate the scale. You've all these different sort of interactions that you have to sort of relearn. And getting that, we did this completely remotely. So it it was very difficult to, you know, gauge where everybody was at, and it was almost on a one-to-one basis where you were training people up. You know, after this slide, we'll show a sort of blooper reel where we, in the first day, try to get everybody up to speed, get everybody using the one application. You know, from the technical learning curve to the hardware to the software, you know, there was many different things that we had to think about. And then as we progressed through the sort of 12 weeks, we had issues like updating apps. So there was even foreseeing, you know, problems that we didn't foresee at the start. We then had to react to as we were going through the process, you know. And again, what we have isn't a final solution, but we've a lot of problems resolved. And as Tash was saying earlier, this is what we intend to do here. We intend to share what we did so that other people can learn from our mistakes and add to that information then, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Like it wasn't all pain. You know, we definitely had, we had a lot of fun during it, and I'd highly recommend giving it a go. But there's definitely a fun element that comes with it, you know. So I'm going to just go through this as a short 2-minute blooper reel, but you'll see where the crack was involved. You know, there was a lot of fun among the students and the staff involved.
I think the first thing is to probably stick it on our heads and see what happens.
Wonders there batteries in it?
Yep. No, there's no batteries in it. Oh, that's what's wrong then. Me and Padraic stole your batteries.
Go to the second drawer.
You have to move to Mayo to get it to work, you know.
So the balloon, you know, place with the hot air balloons and the palm trees, is that kind of home? You know, we need these kind of difficulties because they're going to come up again and again. We need to find out how to
I can't take it seriously. Like, not even a wee bit seriously.
Okay.
Oh, that's nuts. This is very Minority Report.
This is like the nicest day we've had all year, and we're sitting here with headsets on.
Just give you a wee flavour of some of the fun that we had. But this is a screenshot actually from with Inside Spatial, and this is before we actually had legs within it. So you design your own avatar. There's fun involved in that there as well. People coming in with different costumes and so on. So there is and it helps people to get on board because there's a headset and handset as well. There are 2 handsets, so there is a bit of a learning curve. It's almost like learning how to play a game, I suppose, to a certain extent, in order to be able to collaborate fully and effectively. But you, as an educator, you can walk around the class, and I can see this working. You know, it's already it's happening within teams within industry. But you can walk around and see what's going on and what people are working on. There's this kind of instant collaboration. You know, you can, rounds of applause is happening. People nod. You can, when somebody's talking, it's picking up mouth movements as well. Hand gestures, because you're using 2 handsets, you're seeing all the hand gestures as well. So it's obvious when somebody's engaged, and it's also obvious when somebody's not engaged. And I think that's where it gets really interesting. So when you have that, you know, someone you see in Microsoft Teams, when somebody puts up their hand for a question in meetings, and then you have this term legacy hand. Is that a legacy hand or is that a real hand? You get these phrases coming up. If you do that in VR and you put your hand up, it's very natural. Your hand goes up. It doesn't stay up. You know, it'd be weird if it did stay up. So, but if you take your hand down again, little things like that are just really obvious that this person is actually in the room. Yeah, a lot of active learning, and movement becomes a lot more obvious. If somebody's not moving, they're probably not engaged in the project that you're working on, or whatever it is that you're doing. Different little happy accidents then. When we went in the first day, we went into a public space instead of a private space, with people coming up to us and asking us about, what are you doing in here? There was this, I had this conversation on the first day actually with this guy from Japan. Just walked up to us and says, what are you doing here? He says, well, we're about to, it's our first time in here, you know. And he says, well, what are you doing? And all of a sudden it became a pitch for the course, a bit like today. Say, well, we're actually here promoting the masters and so on. So there's recruitment opportunities in here, and I suppose a shout out for the marketing department. That could be an untapped source for recruitment, or even for industry as well, for selecting new staff. We were evidencing work through selfie modes and stuff like that, and you can record and screen. A lot of downfalls too. I think within Spatial, they record everything apparently. So there was a lot of GDPR things that we had to check out before we got knee deep in it. So it was really interesting process. Yeah, so I'll pass over to Mark for this wee bit actually, because it was so important to have tech support in there. It was vital. And some of the things that were coming up within the class, Mark, you could allude to a bit more what was actually happening off camera, if you know what I mean.
No, definitely. Like, again, because this was so new and special, we had a lot of issues with people logging in and having accounts synced up. And this is, you know, from the first point of implementing VR, you definitely have to have two people approaching this. You need to have the academic who focuses on their side, and you have to have, you know, a tech support there who can come in, take somebody out, resolve the issue, and allow them to get back into the class, you know. And simple things like Wi-Fi dropping, the typical online issues that you can have, slow broadband, they all have an impact in the quality of experience, you know. But if you have somebody there who can deal with that and allow the academic to focus on what they do, then I think it's the perfect world. And as you know, we have there, you know, the likes of this, you have 24/7 access within Spatial. It can be accessed remotely anywhere around the world. And again, you know, productivity, there was lots of, the more time we spent in VR, the more we learned about how to improve the process. And for example, like, we had nice things happening. We had the MetaQuest 2, which is a hand tracking based headset as well. So you can actually let go of the controllers and you can start using your hands in virtual space. And it just allows for more precise hand gestures like thumbs up, okay. But it also allows for different types of interactions. And a lot of students then started to look at that in the development of their design projects as well, you know.
It's just a few screenshots there from within the area that we're working in within Spatial. We did test out a few other ones, like MS Teams and not MS Teams. Actually, MS Teams, I think, have bought Allspace. They'll probably have a new one out by the time September comes. But yeah, we tried out Facebook's Teamworks or something like that. It was called Horizon Workwords.
Yeah.
Yeah. So loads of different variations. I'm conscious of time here, folks. So I'm gonna start wrapping it up. But the what's next for us within what we learned from this year is to really start to look at training for staff and an onboarding process for students that are coming into this. To see this very much working within client briefs as well. You know, if you're working in industry and you want to bring a client group in, or some staff members from a client group to work on some ideation, for example, within VR, you know, if you had that streamlined kind of onboarding process and you had that tech support there's no reason why you couldn't have that, and it would build on that client relationship as well, no doubt about it. We will be looking at developing further courses off the back of this. There's one myself and Mark are proposing at the minute around UX and XR potentially, and then there's research outputs obviously out of this for academia, and then we'll continue to enhance this new mode of delivery. You know, so tech support is a must within this at the minute. You know, it really has the academic with the tech support, or if you're working with clients, you need your tech support with you there as well, especially these early stages when VR still finding its feet. So I think that's a necessity. So yeah, thanks for listening on that there point. I just want to jump very quickly back to the original deck, because I know there was a problem in the sharing of that there. I just want to bring up the final slide. A couple of people were asking about the applications for the course, and I see a couple of questions coming in there as well. So yeah, the course runs September to September. It is 1 day a week, and it is open for applications now. You'll see a link here at the bottom. We'll send out the link directly to you, and the decks from today. It's a master's in a year. You know, a lot of these courses you'll do, and you might just get a digital badge at the end of it. This is a master's. This carries weight. And there's funding and scholarships there available up to 2.5K. So drop an email to Nulla Crombie, lyat.ie, or Donald there, who's helping us out today on the hosting, or myself. We can give you some more information, but we'll send you on the more details about that later on. So let me see, is there any queries coming up there? One from
First
Aaron.
question in there, Padraic's from Sharon Boyle. So from Sharon down, there are the questions.
Is it very distracting with all the movement from the participants? I presume you're talking about in VR there, Sharon. No, not at all. It's, if anything, it's more engaging. So if you think back to the classroom, you know, when you were on the course and we were going through that, you know, the being in the classroom is not distracting. You know, it's engaging. So when you're in VR, it's as close as you can get to that, really. That's all I can say about it. But because you don't, you know, where it does get distracting, when somebody's not engaged. You know, so if somebody else isn't engaged, they kind of their avatar, no, you know, they're not engaged because it throws a funny shape. The avatar actually throws a funny shape, and is very static and it's not moving, so that can be distracting, absolutely. Marie Claire, has there been much research around the negative impact VR learning could have on students' mental health, social interactions, and need for site classrooms on campus, etc.? How do you monitor this? We've come a long way for our days at McGee. Yeah, thanks, Marie Claire. Yeah, we came up against a lot of stuff. You know, that definitely one of the things one of the students, Caroline, actually brought up in the final presentation was about time. Having that amount of time with the headset on your head was a lot, and that was partly my fault on the day, because when I was controlling it or recording it, the presentations, I wasn't wearing the headset. I was doing it from desktop, so I didn't even realize that we'd gone on for so long. So there's things around that there, around, you know, you need the appropriate breaks in there. You probably need that 15 minutes on, 10 minutes off type of thing, you know, and that's definitely things that we noticed along the way. That within the classroom and within the environment, and when everyone was plugged in and everyone was logged in, it worked brilliantly for limited periods of time, and then people started to get tired. So you do get tired a lot quicker. Go on to the next one here. Aaron, is there mics in the hardware so you can have verbal conversations in the VR space? Did you pick up on that one, Mark, around the spatial audio?
Yeah, there's 100%. There's the Oculus Quest has built-in mics, but it also has 3 spatial sound for the output as well in the headsets.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, the different spaces that we'd set up, more or less one room, but one group could work over here and the other group could work over there. And if you move over with your avatar, you know, the sound moves with you. If you're close to people, there is that proximity. Something in from Joe there, Joe Dunleavy. It's very good to see in action. Many speaking about VR, the metaverse, but ATU helping to lead the way. Thanks, Joe. Sharon says no popping out for a cuppa in the middle of class. No, you can. Well, you probably could, but you'd be bringing everybody with you. There is a virtual Starbucks in there as well. Tash is typing here. We're going to finish up with this one. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, folks. Tash is heading off. That's grand. Thanks, Donald, for hosting us. Thanks, Mark, and thanks very much, Tash. If there's any questions, drop us an email. We'll send you on the decks in the meantime. Other than that, get out and enjoy some of that sunshine and get off the computers. All right, see you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.